What's up, guys, and welcome to Gamescript. Backup quarterbacks have been good to us all season so far, and we have yet another one in Jaren Hall tonight. And I will break down the analysis and see if Jaren Hall is going to be good to us this week. There is a ton of value in current underdog playoff best ball ADP. Elite offenses like the Bills are easy to stack. Take advantage of uncertainty and start drafting now. Use the promo code SEEK for up to $100 match on your first deposit. And subscribe to Heat Seeker Sports on YouTube for underdog strategy and drafting shows. What's up, guys? Simon Edwards at Pumacom here with Heat Seeker Sports. You're watching Gamescript. This is a show where I break down DraftKings Showdown analysis for these island games. And this week we have Minnesota versus Green Bay. They're playing in Minnesota. 43.5 point total with Minnesota as 1.5 point favorites. Kind of a weird line to me. I would have thought that Green Bay would be favorites. Minnesota is pretty banged up, but they do have Justin Jefferson, so that makes sense. But Green Bay has been playing really well lately, and I think Green Bay has the momentum right now. Minnesota seems like they are hanging on by a thread to their season, and it's just a game with a lot of stakes because both these teams are playing for getting into the playoffs, and so the outcome of this game will play a huge role in deciding which of these teams could potentially get to the playoffs. So before I get into that analysis, make sure to hit like on the video. Looking for 15 likes to put out a shorter video a little bit later on. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm at 330 subscribers so far, looking to hit 400 before the end of the playoffs. So I'm 70 short of that. So help me out there and sign up for an underdog account because I'm going to be doing a ton of playoff best ball content. It's the most fun game out there as far as best ball, in my opinion, and you get weekly payouts as your teams advance, so you're not sitting there waiting the whole season to get those payouts. And it is a lot of uncertainty with which teams are going to advance to the playoffs, and I do a lot of content helping to try to clarify that and teaching you guys how to draft these playoff best ball teams. And if you use the promo code SEEK, SEEK, like Heat Seekers, then Underdog is going to give you up to $100 on your first deposit for new accounts. They're going to match you up to $100 on your first deposit on new accounts. So make sure to use that promo code SEEK. And when you sign up, they default you to some default promo code. Just swap that out for SEEK and let me know that you signed up, because I will send you my best ball playoff best ball rankings when you do that. Hit me up on Twitter at Pumacom. Let me know you signed up, and I'll hook you up with some rankings, and we'll get into these best ball streets. It's going to be pretty crazy. But for now, let's look at this game for DraftKings Showdown. We have a interesting situation because there are some injuries and suspensions that have implications in this game. Justin Jefferson came back a couple weeks ago. He's been healthy and good. Last week, he had 141 yards. He was back to his old ways, 29 DraftKings points in that game, and 15 the week before that. So he is back and in full force, and he has a quarterback in Jaren Hall who is going to be interesting tonight. He's going to be a interesting situation. He is at 8,400 in the flex. Love that price because we don't get quarterbacks that cheap very often. And he is a Konami quarterback. He's a guy that can run. He's an athletic guy. He's a talented guy. He threw a lot of touchdowns for BYU. And he is definitely on the radar for tonight because one of his specialties was throwing deep down the sidelines, and that should fit well with Justin Jefferson, and it should fit well in the matchup tonight, considering that Jair Alexander is suspended. So he's not going to be playing in this game tonight, and that's going to improve the matchup for the passing game of the Minnesota Vikings and sets up Jaren Hall to have, like a good passing situation. So Jaren Hall is interesting. Justin Jefferson is definitely interesting. Jordan Love is also interesting. He's expensive, though. He's at 11K for good reason. Jordan Love has been on fire recently. He's had a great season so far this year. Just waiting for my thing to pop up here. But Jordan Love is in a decent, well, not a decent matchup. He's in a bad matchup against Minnesota. Minnesota's only allowing 13.8 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position. Okay, so you can see his last few games. 24 DraftKings points allowed versus Carolina, 11 DraftKings points versus New York, and 23, 26, 23, 18. So he had a good stretch there from Jordan Love, and he's been good for most of the season, and he's showing upside in rushing, getting us some rushing touchdowns, and also in the passing game. But let's see some of the matchups that he's had versus those more difficult matchups. Let's see, Jordan Love versus Carolina. That's a difficult passing matchup. He had 24 DraftKings points. Against Kansas City, he had 23 DraftKings points. Let's see. Against Pittsburgh, he had 19 DraftKings points. Versus Minnesota the first time around, he only had 15 and a half DraftKings points. 16 versus Denver, only 8 versus Las Vegas, which is a good pass defense. Versus New Orleans, he had 25. Atlanta, he had 20. And Chicago, he had 23. So kind of mixed results there. Does not really shy me away from Jordan Love too much. I know in the last game that they played against each other, Brian Flores likes to blitz a ton, and he didn't blitz as much as he normally does against Jordan Love in their last matchup against each other. So, maybe Jordan Love does good against that pressure, and the Vikings will, do a little less of it this week like they did in that first go-around. But, Jordan Love is one of those guys. He's not matchup proof, but he can beat a matchup as we've seen from, his performances against some of these tough defenses like Kansas City and stuff like that. So Jordan Love is in play. Nick Mullins is the guy that got benched. Aaron Jones has, let's see. He doesn't have a great matchup. Minnesota's only allowing 19.5 DraftKings points a game to the running backs, but let's see what they're doing to the receiving game and the running backs. Let me just get up my information here. I'm going to check out 33rd Team. This is a resource that I like to use when I'm looking at these DraftKings points allowed. You go to the Edge. That's their tool. It's a free tool. Over at the 33rd Team, Josh Larkey is one of the guys who helped develop this, and he is a guy that knows his stuff when it comes to, this kind of stuff, projections and whatnot. Let's go to Team Defense. Let's do filters. We're going to set it to scoring system DraftKings, and I don't want to get all weeks in there. I'm going to go from let's do week 7 on. So that gives us a good portion of the season and cuts out all that gobbledygook at the beginning of the season. And I think that's it for what we need here. So let's apply those filters. Oh, want to go per game. And let's look at running backs. So let's filter this by targets. And we'll see where Minnesota stands. Minnesota is allowing the 5th most targets per game since week 7 to running back position. That is really good for Aaron Jones because Aaron Jones is a back that focuses or has a big part of the passing game. So I like that for Minnesota this week. 7 receptions out of those 7.7 targets and 43 receiving yards a game. So good matchup for Aaron Jones. Not so good in the actual running game because, as you can see, we have to scroll down. It's about a middling. They're allowing 17th most rushing yards per game. So it's not a horrible matchup. So Aaron Jones is in play tonight. So let's get back over here. I like Aaron Jones this week. especially with the injuries that Green Bay's dealing with. Christian Watson's looking like he's going to miss another game. Jayden Reed was questionable earlier in the week. Looks like he doesn't have an injury designation. He also has the best matchup for the wide receivers, and he's the guy that gets targeted the most in zone coverage. So let's take a look at Jayden Reed real quick here. The Packers, the Vikings are giving up 14.3 DraftKings points a game to the slot. That's not a great situation, but DVOA perspective, I am seeing that the matchup from a DVOA perspective in the slot is really good for Jayden Reed. It's among the top 10 that matchups that you can get in the slot. So that's good for Jayden Reed. And wideouts against Minnesota are getting 15.4 DraftKings points a game. That's pretty good for the wideouts in the Packers. Jayden Reed does about 30% of his routes out wide, but Romeo Doubs is the guy that we want for our wideout. And he has gotten 5 targets, 3 targets, 7 targets, 5 targets. He's had up and down. He's had a lot of double-digit point scoring. Let's see. Last matchup versus Minnesota, he had 12 DraftKings points, and he scored a touchdown. So Romeo Doubs is in play tonight, especially with Christian Watson out. I like Jayden Reed, I think, the best, though. Jayden Reed's where I'm going to lean if I'm only starting one of these receivers against this tough Minnesota pass defense. Ty Chandler. Alexander Mattison returned last week. Chandler had 8 attempts last week, did not do anything in the passing game, only had 8 DraftKings points. So that could be due to Mattison here. Madison's only at 4,400, which is interesting this week. He had only 2 attempts last week, no targets. But yeah, Mattison is back now. He was the starter at the beginning of the season, but they've been trying to get away from him as the starter. They brought in Cam Akers and stuff like that. And then they finally gave Chandler an opportunity a couple weeks ago, and Chandler went off and did pretty much won the starting job with his performance when Madison was hurt. But we're looking at Green Bay Packers are giving up 23.4 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. So that's pretty good and sets up Chandler to have a decent game. Minnesota has struggled to run the ball, though, but you might expect this week to maybe run the ball a little bit more with a rookie quarterback in Chandler. I mean, in what's his face? Hall. So we move on to the next guy. Christian Watson is looking doubtful. KJ Osborne is slot receiver for the Vikings, and he got 7 targets last week, 2 the week before that, and 7 the week before that. All these guys were going off with Mullins. Like, Mullins just threw too many picks, so Mullins does not get another opportunity here. That's where we're seeing Jaren Hall. But last week, KJ Osborne had 20 DraftKings points, so a good game there. And as far as the Minnesota receivers, the slot receivers are in the best spot. They're getting 23.4 DraftKings points a game from the Green Bay's defense. So that sets up KJ Osborne to have a decent game if you want to keep him on your radar. He's at 6,400, so he's a little bit pricey, but he has upside and he's in a good matchup. Tyler Kraft is a Green Bay tight end that's been doing pretty well recently. He had 6 targets, and 4 targets. We targeted him. I can't remember if it was on a main slate or a showdown slate, but I liked Tucker Kraft, and he delivered for us. He is still pretty he's expensive now. He's 5,800, but Green Bay versus Minnesota tight ends do not have a good matchup. It's only 11 DraftKings points a game, so maybe not so much on Kraft this week. Unless you want to, get a little bit different, I guess, or ignore the matchup. But I don't really like Kraft too much based on that. Dontayvion Wicks is a guy that I like. He has been getting targets with injuries to these other receivers. 7 targets a couple weeks ago, 6 targets a week before that. I think last week he got hurt, so he only got 2 targets, but he had 10 DraftKings points, 11 DraftKings points where he scored a touchdown. So good game last week by Dontayvion, apart from, getting hurt. He's questionable this week, but if he plays, very limited activity this week. Wicks would need to return to practice Friday in order to play. Packers listing him as questionable. Keep an eye on him. Keep an eye on him for tonight's game. See if he's inactive or not. If he plays, maybe he's interesting, but he's at 5,600, so maybe not so much worth the risk when you got Doubs. Not too much more. He's only Doubs is, he's 9K. I was looking at Doubs. So pretty good situation with Wicks. He's just expensive and he's questionable. So we don't know what his status is going to be for tonight. But I do like him in general. I just these past few times playing these Green Bay slates or whatever, Wicks has stood out, and he's been having some big games. He's kind of a unknown guy, and he has these big games every once in a while. So he's definitely interesting if he plays. A.J. Dillon, not really interested there against this tough defense, and he doesn't catch the ball as much as Aaron Jones does. He does get some targets, but A.J. Dillon just he's just been flat all year. I'm just not interested in A.J. Dillon. Oliver is 5,200. Hawkinson, sucks to lose Hawkinson. He tore his ACL. That really sucks for Hawkinson because Hawkinson was a stud this year, and he had a bright future for next year, but now it looks like he's probably going to miss at least some of next year, and it takes a while for these guys to get back from these ACL injuries, so hate to see that for Hawkinson. But Josh Oliver kind of steps in here. Josh Oliver could be interesting tonight with the tendency of new quarterbacks to lean on their tight ends, and Josh Oliver is a good receiving tight end. He's had a few moments already this year, and Green Bay is allowing 12 DraftKings points a game to the tight end. So Oliver is in play, and he's cheap or relatively cheap at 5,200. So let's move on from that. Greg Joseph is in a good spot, playing at home in a dome. And, maybe the Packers defense being weakened by Jair Alexander being gone, and, Minnesota ability to move the ball potentially here. Could get in the red zone. Maybe they stall out a little in the red zone with a rookie quarterback. That sets up Greg Joseph. I don't think that the Vikings will be as aggressive with their play calling either. So if they have opportunities to take points, they probably will. So that sets up Joseph. And Carlson on the other side, benefits from a dome as well. Carlson, he's been having a good little run here lately. And this is a game where these teams are going to be taking points. They're in a playoff hunt. So Carlson is another interesting guy with that tough defense too. Maybe a little less aggressive on the Green Bay side too. So kickers are in play today. Madison, I talked about him. Vikings D against Green Bay. What'd they do last time against Green Bay? They scored 10 DraftKings points. So yeah, they're in play. They're in play with the injuries to Green Bay too. Like I said, Christian Watson is out. Dontayvion Wicks, I saw him as doubtful. So Dontayvion Wicks is doubtful. I saw it on another site. So DraftKings has him as questionable, but I've seen him somewhere else as doubtful. So definitely keep an eye on Dontayvion Wicks. If he's out too, that's going to improve Romeo Doubs' situation like exponentially. And Jair Alexander is out too. So that's really good for that. Jair Alexander is good for the Minnesota passing game, but like Dontayvion Wicks and Christian Watson out is good for Doubs, and it's good for some of these dumpster diving priced guys too. We'll get into that in a second here. Packers D is interesting, of course, versus a rookie quarterback, backup quarterback, and Hall had a tendency to make some stupid turnovers. So the turnovers should continue this week for Minnesota. which will set up the Packers nicely. They had only 7 DraftKings points last time, but keep in mind, with Justin Jefferson, it's always dangerous to start a defense against Justin Jefferson, but we do have a rookie backup quarterback. Malik Heath is another guy who will benefit from these injuries to the wide receivers. 1 target last week, 3 the week before that, 2, 2, 4. So gives you an idea. He's done pretty good with his opportunities too. He's put up. He had a touchdown a couple weeks ago, 5.9 DraftKings points a couple weeks ago. So he's doing all right. So Malik Heath is a guy that we can keep in mind. He's at 3,400 though. I don't like that price. Powell, not sure what the deal with Powell is. It seems like he's kind of lost that slot work to KJ Osborne. Osborne seems to be taking a bigger control of it, but he did get 4 targets last week, and he's had a few weeks where he had 3, 4, 5 targets. So Powell is interesting, but he just doesn't have enough upside for me, so I'm not really interested there. Musgrave is on IR. Munt is one of these Green Bay tight ends who should benefit, or no, he's a Minnesota tight end, but he should benefit from Hawkinson being out. So keep him in mind, but I don't know. I'm going to go out of my way to start him. He's at 2,800, and he doesn't have a really good matchup anyway. Well, it's an okay matchup, but I prefer Oliver obviously over these backups. Melton is the other Green Bay Packer that should benefit from the injuries to the Packers. 6 targets last week, 6 targets, 4 receptions, 44 yards. So he was worked into that game plan last week. So Melton at a discount to the who was the other guy? To Heath is interesting, and he is at 2,400. So if you're going low with these guys, like Melton is a guy that you should put on your radar. DeGuara hasn't really done too much, but maybe with the injuries, if we don't have, well, he hasn't done anything. I don't think we need to really go there. Toure is another guy who should benefit from these injuries, but he is not really, getting the work. I like Melton, I think, the best out of these guys that I've seen. Patrick Taylor, not really interested there. As far as going down lower than that, I don't really see anyone too interesting. So let's go with our captain. I think Justin Jefferson is obviously going to stand out as the best captain. So maybe we try to build with him first. I'm going to put him in there. I'm going to put in Hall because he's so cheap. Let's get Love in there because he's got raw point upside. And let's get Melton. Let's just put Melton in there right off the bat to give us some salary relief. That's going to give us 5,100 per guy. If we went in this direction, I might look to one of the kickers. Let's look to Carlson maybe. Let's say that. Let's look to Joseph because I think Joseph will have a bigger game. That leaves us with Oliver in range. That would set us up as, like 4-2 builds in favor of the Vikings. I don't think you're going to get much of an advantage going 4-2 one way or the other. I think they're about equally owned. You'd have to go 5-1 to get a build differentiator. But, maybe 5,200. That gives us like Oliver as an option. It gives us Carlson as an option if you want to go double kicker. Might be not the worst idea to go double kicker. Vikings D, Packers D, super cheap at 3,600. 3,600 for the Packers D. Considering they're up against a rookie backup. I don't hate that at all. Let's put them in there. Let's swap out Joseph maybe for that way we can get like Osborne or Doubs. We can get freaking Doubs. I keep getting Doubs and Dubs mixed up. Osborne and Kraft would be the guys that I'd be interested in this area. And if we put one of those guys in there that give us basically a 4-2 build, which makes a lot of sense because you'd have Love with 2 pass catchers and the defense, and then you'd have Jaren Hall and Justin Jefferson in there too. So that all syncs up. Very good correlation in a build like that. And you could even swap that out for Minnesota's defense if you wanted to go that way. If you did that, then you just have $400 less. That takes Osborne out of the equation and sets you up with Kraft as an option. I think I like the Packers D better in this matchup tonight. Let's clear that out. Let's take a look at some other options here. I've been using Jayden Reed in the captain a lot lately, and he is pretty cheap on this slate. Let's put him in the captain. Let's put Jefferson, Love. Let's get Hall in there. Leaves us with 37 per guy. Let's get Melton. I like the value on that Melton play. 2,400. That leaves us with 5,100. That sets us up with Joseph or Carlson. So that's a perfect spot. And we have both the defenses as options too. So depending on your lean on which team that you think is going to win, that's probably the lean that I would go for a defense or a kicker. I think this game's going to be close. So, I don't hate going 3-3s. And I don't really hate like not trying to build necessarily for a high-powered offensive situation. So let's clear that out too. I'll give you what the optimizer is spitting out. Optimizer likes Jaren Hall as the captain. Let's get him in there. Get him in the captain. Optimizer likes Greg Joseph and Tucker Kraft and Ty Chandler. So let's get Ty Chandler in there. Let's get Greg Joseph in there. And let's get Tucker Kraft in there. Then on top of that, they like Jordan Love. And you can use your imagination with the remaining piece there. That leaves you set up for 7,400. You have Reed as an option. You have Osborne. You got Dylan, like Wicks if he actually plays, and Oliver, guys like that. So it leaves you pretty set up for a nice spot. I don't hate that build. Just don't know the uncertainty on Jaren Hall tonight. Let's see. Let me try and see if I get an idea of what the ownership and the captain's looking like. Justin Jefferson at the highest about 17. Hall is pretty high owned too, but you got an athletic quarterback with a cheap price tag there. Jordan Love is up there. Jayden Reed is up there. He's at about 11%. If we're looking for a discount, let's go with Romeo Doubs. I see him at under 6%. So let's go with Doubs as our captain. Dobbs is like, how is he more expensive than Reed? We'll get him in there. We'll get Jefferson. I'm going to put in maybe Chandler and Jaren Hall. I want to get Jaren Hall in there. So we got Hall to Jefferson. We got Chandler in there. We got Doubs as the captain. Let's go down here a bit and try to get in Melton again. Melton, I think he's more in play if we see that Dontayvion Wicks is out in addition to Christian Watson. Otherwise, I don't think he's going to be getting the type of work that we'll need from him. And that sets us up with Oliver and Dylan. I mean, Oliver makes a lot of sense. This is like the rookie backup quarterback starter pack. You got the quarterback in Hall, you got his running back, you got his ace wide receiver, and you got his tight end. That's the starter pack. If you were buying a rookie from the store and they gave you a starter pack, like that's what would be included with Jaren Hall. So I mean, that sets up the Vikings side very nicely. On the Green Bay side, we're putting a little bit of let's get rid of Melton and let's get what's his face? Let's get Oliver in there. 2,700. Melton, DeGuara, Torre. You got options for the dumpster dive there. I think I'd lean Melton, and we're just crossing our fingers that Christian Watson is out, as well as Dontayvion. They're both, one is doubtful, one is questionable on leaning doubtful. So, hopefully we'll get what we need there. Let's clear that out. Let's see who is cheap here. Aaron Jones. I kind of like Aaron Jones. We didn't use Aaron Jones in any of these lineups. Let's do an Aaron Jones captain build. Let's see what he did last time against Minnesota. He might have been hurt last time they played. No, he had 8.6 DraftKings points. But knowing what we know about the passing game there, let's get Love in there. And let's say that Doubs does not do much this week. Let's get Reed in there. Let's get Jaren Hall in there. Leaves us with 4,200 per remaining spot. If we go down to, let's get the Packers D in there. Let's say that Hall is struggling a little bit. Packers D might also be included in that rookie starter pack. So we're looking at Carlson here, Vikings D. We could go Madison. Got some options here too. If we can find another $100, we could get Greg Joseph in there too. But this is pretty good direction for Green Bay, and it might be interesting, having Hall as the only guy in there for Minnesota. But of course, like we'd be sacrificing Justin Jefferson. So let's put Jefferson in there. That leaves us with 1,300. That sets us up with Taylor, Sims. I don't know who Sims is. Taylor is the backup running back on Green Bay. Don't really see anything I like down there. So maybe not the best build here. If we swap out Reed, maybe. Let's swap out Reed. Let's say he's banged up. And we put in, maybe we put in Oliver. I took out Hall. Let's put back in Hall, actually. If we put Hall in, that leaves us only 300. It's tough to do it with the more expensive guys in that captain spot if we want to get Jefferson and all the upside in there. But maybe Love is struggling against Minnesota. So let's get Love out of there. That leaves us with 5,600. Maybe we put Reed back in there because he can still get targets even if Love is struggling. That sets us up with Heath at least. Melton is the preferred play there for me. But I mean, we do this. We got Jones, we got Reed, we got Hall, we got Jefferson, we got Packers, and we got Melton. So it's 4-2 Packers build still. We still got that combo of Jaren Hall and Justin Jefferson in there. I kind of liked the other one that I had with Jefferson as captain. I think that's probably my favorite of the builds. Doesn't really account for Aaron Jones, unfortunately, in that other build. But Aaron Jones, I got to do some thinking on Aaron Jones tonight. I think the matchup on paper as far as DraftKings points allowed is not good for him, but the matchup as far as like the receiving opportunity is good for him. Let's go back to that edge tool. And let's look at the running backs. Fantasy points allowed. Scrolling down. Minnesota's at number 14. Green Bay is, where's Green Bay? Yeah, Green Bay's gotten better recently. They're only allowing 22.7 DraftKings points. Minnesota's allowing 22.8. Let's see where that is relative to where I had them. Yeah, so Minnesota has I put in week 7 on before I was having like week 6 on. When you put week 7 on, Minnesota's defense gets significantly worse against the running back. It gives them an extra 2 points. So, that would set it up for a middling matchup instead of a bad matchup. So Minnesota's defense is not as intimidating as you might think against the running backs in more recent terms. Let's get Jefferson back in there. Let's do that same build that I had earlier where we had Jefferson, Love, we had Hall, then we had Green Bay's defense, I believe. We had Melton, and then we had 6,600 left over for a guy like Osborne or Kraft or someone if you wanted to go there. If we do this, let's get Love out of there and let's put in Aaron Jones instead. So you put in Aaron Jones, that leaves you with 7,800. That gives you options like Addison. That gives you options like Jayden Reed. Jayden Reed, I think I would lean over Addison in this build. I know we don't have Jordan Love in there, but like we got Jones in there. So we're just hoping that Aaron Jones outscores Jordan Love tonight, and that extra salary that we got for Reed is enough to cover any difference if that doesn't happen. But I think that's a good way to go. I kind of like that. Yeah, we're still out of reach of Doubs, but I like Reed better anyways tonight. So, that gives you a few different directions to go. But make sure to hit that like button. Looking for 15 likes to get out like a little bit closer to lock some more complete thoughts on this. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube page. Looking for about 70 more till I hit 400. So I'm getting close to that 400 mark. And make sure to sign up for Underdog. Use the promo code SEEK, SEEK, and Underdog's going to match you up to $100 on your first deposit. Got to make sure that you're doing that manually because they will default to a different promo code. So you got to manually input SEEK, SEEK. And let me know when you do. Hit me up on Twitter at Pumacom, and I'll send you rankings for playoff best ball. And until next time, guys. Let me show you what that last lineup looked like because I forgot to switch my tab back over. All right, Jefferson, Jones, Hall, Packers, Melton, 7,800 left on the table. You got options of Addison and Reed. I think I lean more towards Reed in that spot. So there's a look at that lineup. And good luck, guys, and hopefully I'll see you tonight.